My expectations were up here, and it didn't quite hit the mark. This is the HTC Vive XR Elite, and I'm not keeping it. Right off the rip, if you're looking for a standalone headset and you want to play games and stuff like that just on the headset alone, don't bother. Literally go buy a Quest 2. It's less than half the price of this, and you're going to have way more content, including some pretty big exclusives like Beat Saber. Me personally, I didn't care about any of that. I wanted this just for streaming PCVR content, both with a cable when I'm on my sim rig and wireless when I'm doing literally anything else. And it works. There are some issues. Well, really one gigantic issue with the first party software is that anytime you go to close it, it just freaks out. I've tried closing SteamVR first, thinking that might solve it, but no, it still freaks out. And what I'm talking about, what happens is it will just kind of freeze the computer. I can hear my GPU whining like crazy, and it just takes forever to get out of that state. It's not responsive to inputs. Sometimes I'll just force shut down the PC just to get it to shut up. When it's not freaking out, the software works, and it has some stuff that you can tune, namely the bitrate and the streaming resolution, although it kind of refers to it as something else, but that's what it is. You have a couple other settings, but those are the two big ones, and now that I had some time to play with it, you can get away with a lot. I was using this only on 6E, Wi-Fi 6E that is, because here where I live, it's super congested. There's Wi-Fi 5 connections all over the place, so having a separate 6 gigahertz band that's totally free made a big difference for me. I really like that just because I always had issues with Wi-Fi 5 or even Wi-Fi 6. It's just unfortunate that right now Virtual Desktop, which is a third-party sort of connection, which is set to launch at some point, is just not live yet. The developers are working on it. They're just waiting on something before they publish it. But for me, it'll be a little bit too late. If you do have this though, check it out. One thing that this thing did way better than literally any other headset that I've tried is comfort. It doesn't matter if you have it in this glasses mode or, with the actual battery cradle on the back. This thing is just so nice. And especially compared to the Quest Pro, which I did try briefly. I just didn't even bother making any content for it because it was just so uncomfortable. I don't know who the hell it was designed for. Certainly not me. But this thing definitely beats it in either mode. I could see some people being a little bit uncomfortable with this just because of the pressure that it can put depending on where you sit it. But the battery cradle, holy, it balances so well, and it's my preferred way to play because this mode just left me a little disappointed. For my sim setup, I thought this was going to be sick because I wouldn't have to worry about having a battery cradle on the back of my head, kind of preventing me from getting in a good head position. With this, all you have is the cable, but there are limitations, and now that I understand, I get it. I just feel like it wasn't really communicated well beforehand. What I'm talking about is that you need 30 watts PD of power delivery to this thing. Otherwise, it's just not going to work properly. If I hook this directly into my motherboard from this port, it'll work. It'll just go into a super duper dim mode that will discharge the internal battery because if I didn't mention it, this has a small internal battery really meant for just reserving the power while you switch out from a different power source, which is cool. But it just means that you can't use it in that mode. And I tried so many different combinations to maybe somehow inject PD into the chain by using different hubs, like injecting PD into the hub and plugging the hub into the computer and then that to this or vice versa, and nothing I did worked. I reached out to HTC and they said that that was just an unsupported use case. So that sucks because I was so excited for that. And technically you could still use it. I could still use it in this mode and just use wireless streaming and then just plug this into some sort of PD outlet or a PD power bank, which I did end up buying one that serves up 30 watts or more. It just sucks because I want to use a cable for the most stable connection because in sim driving, you need all the bitrate you can get because otherwise things start looking a little strange. Now for the main reason, the screen. I thought that I was going to be able to live with it. I saw LCD. I was like, whatever. I like everything else. How big of a deal can it be? But especially at this price point, it seems kind of crazy. The Quest Pro did a much better job with their mini LED. That definitely looked a lot better than this. So it's just such a bummer. It's just, the contrast is just not there. The backlight is always going to be a potential issue because it's having to backlight the entire screen itself versus like mini LED or OLED being able to kind of light up way smaller zones. I think it's compounded with a second issue, which I don't know that I've read a whole lot about this, but I think what's going on, especially coming from using the Quest Pro for a little bit, I think the lenses are, something's going on. And it might be because they added the diopter, which I'm not a glasses user, but I'm sure it's nice for people that do need that. I feel like there's some issue with like internal reflections. And what I mean by that, in games or situations that are dark or dim, like Beat Saber, for example, which is often dim with, little bits of light, the screen looks noticeably better there than it does when I'm like sim driving, for example, in like the daytime. Because I think what's happening as the screen gets brighter and it's having to turn the backlight up, it's like there's internal reflections within the lens making things look a little hazy. I know the Quest Pro had something similar-ish, not nearly to the extent of this. It's compounded with two issues. The screen itself is just subpar, and then potentially some issues with the lenses, although that could just be me kind of thinking that that is an issue. Lightning run for the rest of it. The good stuff, the pass-through camera, way better than the competition. It's high resolution, full color. I can actually read stuff on my phone. That's so nice. The controllers, one thing I liked is that the stock is longer than it is on the Quest touch controllers, which for Beat Saber feels really nice. You have a lot more to grip onto. I like it. To the weird stuff at the end of the trigger pull, you have a micro switch, which I'm just not used to. I thought it felt weird, but I'm sure you'd get used to it. Other things is that you need to charge these USB-C. Remember to charge them. The battery life on this is probably a little over 2 hours, while the headset's almost 2 hours exactly. You can extend the playtime on the headset by using a power bank that delivers over 30 watts PD, and I'll link the one that I used down below. It worked pretty good. And onto the controllers again, the bad stuff. The tracking on this just doesn't feel as solid as it does on the Quest alternatives in one department especially. It's the transition between being visible to not visible to visible again. It just doesn't feel like it's handled as gracefully as it is on the Quest. The speakers on the actual headset, they're not bad necessarily. They just have very little low end, which is a bit of a bummer considering that there's no input for headphones, which is just strange. If you have a question about something that I didn't quite get to today, leave it down in the comments. I'm going to do my best to respond there. As I mentioned, all of this is going back, but at the very least, I will respond with my experience on this equipment. If any of this was helpful, leave a like, subscribe to the channel for future VR content, because I'm definitely going to get something. I just don't know what that something is. Anyway, thanks for watching. See ya.